New Imo is on the rise. In the beating heart of Owerri, business never sleeps. From sunrise to sundown, the wheels keep turning. And behind the scenes, vision meets action. Governor Hope Uzodinma's leadership has left the pages of manifestos to become real actions and achievements. Transformations that piece by piece feels like a miracle. But progress needs peace to thrive. And in Imo, we are not leaving it to chance. From land to sky to river deep, guardians are always watching, protecting dreams and opportunities. If you go to the quiet shore of Orashi Power, you will see the awakening of a hydropower roaring to electrify and energize a blossoming economy. The change is visible. The heartland of the East is under construction as new roads are threading together once forgotten places. Industry is humming again and communities are alive. At the center of it all, a digital revolution is rising. A new ministry with a new mission. Not just cables and codes, but capacity. 500,000 young minds trained each year to build a digital future. And as Orashi Power goes up, so does Imo, lifting with it the hopes of a hard-working people. A new Imo is on the rise.
It's good to have you back. I'm still here, and of course, it's Global Morning. I told you we have a lot to talk about on the program, and we have this second segment, and there's a whole lot to talk about the electoral process ahead of 2027. Nigerians are waiting. The political space is also, for me, like a game front where the track is set for politicians to get their space and pick up what they want ahead of this. But we'll be looking at the issue around what we have in terms of voter apathy is a major concern. For Nigerians going into 2027. And don't forget, we also had the Electoral Act Amendment where the National Assembly had their back and forth, where they actually finally had it passed to the president and it was assented. And trust me, we had civil society groups speak to the issue, why they hurriedly signed, why is it hurriedly signed into law. All of those questions were asked. And today we'll be looking at tackling voter apathy through the Electoral Act. How is that coming to play? And also in line with the fact that INEC has rescheduled the timetable for 2027. And don't forget, quickly earlier in the program where we talked about opposition parties speaking to this issue and what it should be for them ahead of 2027. But joining me to speak to this issue is a former presidential candidate with Sustained National Party. He's also doubled as a former vice presidential candidate for the ADC. He's also a Speaker, African Union Ambassadorial Assembly. He's also the executive director of Skylark Incorporated in person of Ahmed Buhari. It's good to have you join me.
Thank you, Anyete. It's good to be here. So good morning.
Good morning. Good to see you. But before I bring you up to speed, let's guide our audience to understand direction to which we're looking at. Basically, Nigeria's electoral umpire, that's the Independent National Electoral Commission, ANEC, has released the timetable and schedule of activities for 2027 general elections, setting the stage for what many believe will be a most defining political year for Nigerians and also political contenders into the year 2027. Also, this is also define Nigeria's democratic journey. Looking at 2023, let's start from 2015. I like to make reference to 2015, 2019, and 2023. What lessons Nigerians have learned, and then we'll look at beyond the dates. Right now, from the new schedule of timetable put in by INEC, and deadline lies bigger questions to how do we tackle voter apathy, because recently we saw where the FCT area council elections was conducted here in the FCT. We also had by-elections in Kano and Rivers State, and a lot of questions to ask where Nigerians have actually lost interest. Voter apathy is playing out. I was in Anambra for the governorship election. I was in Edo for the governorship election, and I saw that play out. So I want to look at, like I make reference in 2023 general elections, turnout dropped to nearly 27%, raising concerns about trust participation and effectiveness of the Electoral Act. So today, let's examine whether the Electoral Act is strong enough to rebuild that trust and the confidence, or what must be done ahead of 2027. I'm asking all of this, I'm putting all of these thoughts so it guides our conversation. So let me ask you, you've been a former presidential candidate, you understand, you've also been a former vice presidential candidate, and from your understanding, let's speak to this issue for you. Do you think this early timetable is the positive development that will help Nigerians get in line and avoid voter apathy?
Okay. Yeah, thanks. So indeed, I have been in the field at least for about 10 years now, trying to see how I can actively participate in the process that brings about elected officials. Clearly, as the years run by, the people seem to be losing more trust in the system and do not believe that whatever exercise they're going to take part in would actually produce the kind of candidates that they were hoping to emerge. And this is a big problem because it's a trust issue. It's a trust issue from the side of INEC, not believing that INEC is going to adhere and respectfully ensure that the process goes through according to its laws. Then we also have a problem of, even when you are aggrieved or not agreeing with results, you decide to take it to the court. And in many cases, we've seen how the courts has thrown away cases where you will see very glaring evidences that did not warrant such cases to be thrown out. Over time, this has repeatedly happened, and it has come to the point where Nigerians just feel we can't bother anymore. Regardless of who we vote for, it is not going to translate on the results sheet. So why do we sacrifice ourselves? Do not forget that every election day is a very tedious day, because apart from the restriction of movement, you're also going to be queuing up for hours, you're going to be hungry, you're going to be thirsty, and then there could be election violence in the midst of all of this. So people lose their lives as well when we come to electioneering days, which is why I think it's very imperative for us to ask ourselves, not just as a people, but also as a government, why is there so much voter apathy as we draw closer to the election of 2027?
So you've spoken to this issue, and you've been on the field, you've been a contender, you understand the scenarios of things, but how do you want to speak to Nigerians to understand that despite all of this playing out, that we can make the difference through the votes?
Yes, I've always said this, and I will say it again. If Nigerians come out overwhelmingly, no amount of rigging or intimidation would suppress their will or their votes. One of the reasons why rigging happens is because there's already low turnout. We have a generation of people who do not truly believe in the system. And I've even stopped calling it voter apathy. I call it voter boycott. Because why should I go through all of this when I already know what might be the result? Exactly. So it is actually a case or a challenge to government right now to say, you know, we're going to put certain things in place to ensure that people come out to vote. If you're having about 100 million registered voters, and at the end of the day, you're getting just about 16 to 17 million votes, then it's a shame on the process. Completely. It's like cancelling the election to say, we're going to redo it because you cannot have a one-fifth of the representation. It doesn't make any sense. So I expect that government in its wisdom should start thinking of what policies or what laws it has to put in place to ensure that people go out on that day to vote. And again, the real conversation right now, which is also going to create a further suppression on this apathy that you're talking about, it has to do with the fact that a lot of people are asking, why can't we transmit electronically in real time the results from the polling units? And a lot of people believe that in 2026, 27, when we have grown to a level where technology is there on all levels, Nigerians are smart people, we all have mobile phones, in internet is nearly in everybody's village, and all of a sudden we're just finding out that internet is not everywhere, and so so we might have to do it manually.
Yes.
So all of these things are things that are making Nigerians suspect that there might be some hanky-panky waiting for them along the way.
So let's look at the IRF portal now, because that's one of the contending conversation at the National Assembly, where both the Senate and the House of Representatives had the argument. I covered legislature, so I understand how that plays out. And I saw firsthand where at plenary sittings where we had the lawmakers speak to the issue of the Clause 60, subsection 3 of it, which has to do with the IRF portal, transmission of electronic results, and the arguments. Just like you mentioned, technical issues in terms of networking, and from very low communities where you can have access to internet fast. We still have such communities. Let's not deny that.
Absolutely, I agree. I agree that we do have such communities, but also I would like to say that doesn't it look like it's supposed to be our responsibility at a time like this to identify those such communities and build it up? So I mean, we've had communication companies around our space for the last 25 or 30 years who have invested heavily, who have good relationship with the government. Tell them we have identified some spots.
So it's time for you to fix it.
Fix it for us. We have an election coming up.
So if we have that kind of mindset, what do you think is always holding Nigerians back, or the authorities who are supposed to handle these things? But why I'm asking this, because you've contended, you know the stress, you know the issues that surrounds all of this. Because let's say, for instance, the INEC chairman, Professor Joshua Mokpitong, said he went round to ensure that some things are put in place for the FCT election, for instance. And then when he came back, the post-election, what's it called, that he was given his brief when he was speaking to the media. Apparently, he was talking about the percent. I think it was about how many percent. I don't want to cut the wrong thing right now. That results were actually uploaded to the IRF portal. And then do you see that as a possibility that going into 2027, Nigerians are going to have results from each polling unit, despite the fact that we have a challenge in some communities that don't have a network or the service providers giving them to upload this? So
it is, of course, it's a possibility, and of course it's an option. Yeah, but if lots of Nigerians already feel, that suspicion in itself has already broken down. I'll give you an example. There's a political party that just came alive all of a sudden, and a lot of people were trooping into that political party, believing that this might just be the next best option.
Okay.
And all of a sudden, there was also a lot of conversations around its legality to actually be a political party. And all of a sudden, it dropped drastically as to how much people wanted to be part of it. So what I'm just saying is, there's already tension in the air, there's already skepticism, there's already suspicion, and regardless of what the INEC chairman is going to say, regardless of how the National Assembly would want to change the conversation, of course, it's already been passed into law.
It's a law already. So we're just looking at measures. It's a law already.
So yeah, so in fact, when you spoke to me yesterday about it, I'm like, what do you want to talk about? It's already a done deal. But whatever the case is, I think it's the onus is on us to ensure that we're able to speak to Nigerians to say, you know what? Go and exercise your civic right. Vote for the persons that you believe would give you the Nigeria that you want. So you
don't speak to something you didn't take responsibility.
Absolutely.
You're not responsible for. You need to go out.
Exactly.
Take the step first.
Which is one of the real reasons why I even contested, because before then I was a regular 9-to-5 guy, family man, and my focus was just on that. But then I realized that every single day in the office we were complaining about the system. And so how else?
And you would get it to work.
How else can we get it to work if we're going to sit on the fence? So we said, you know what, we're not going to sit on the fence. We're going to step into the fore. We're going to make conversations, even if the conversations that we utter would be the realization of the winning party's new trajectory towards success. We're fine with that.
Okay, so the fact that it's actually a law now, let's look at measures, political parties, the party primaries timeline. Of course, there's a timeline for all of this with a new schedule put in place. Are political parties really ready? Because I've seen a lot of clamor from opposition party speaking to the timing not being favorable to them. So let me throw this to you. You are still in the space, of course. Do you think political parties are ready with this schedule of timetable for their party primaries following internal party crisis rocking most of the political parties we have right now?
Yeah, well, in truth, being in the space as a politician, I like to say that one night is enough to change a lot.
Okay.
Just one night meeting, a meeting that holds from 11 to 4 o'clock could change the rest of the conversation.
Okay.
Be that as it may, from what we're seeing right now, it doesn't quite look like the other political parties are ready. I saw a meeting yesterday with certain top politicians trying to form some sort of alliance under the African Democratic Congress. Okay. And I always like it when political parties are coming up strong, especially opposition political parties, because what that does to the conversation is the ruling party sits up.
Of course, there should be a competition.
And starts thinking, what do I do to improve on my governance structure so that the people will benefit? Mm-hmm. And at the end of the day, I keep saying all of these things. Whether we like it or not, what is most paramount is for us to have an effective dividend of democracy that has already been laid out to reach the people. Mm-hmm. I know that the current administration has spoken heavily about how it has achieved on macroeconomics, which is very true. On macroeconomics, on a lot of fronts, the government seems to be doing very well. Now, how to connect that with the microeconomics is where I believe we should be focusing on now, so that the average man on the street can actually say, look, I feel better now. Okay. I've had a lot of institutions say, yes, I feel we're stronger now, we like the new policies and all of that, but if it's not translating to the common man on the ground, then the ruling party should be really fidgeting, because it's the common man on the ground that will actually decide the fate of whoever goes into office next.
So let me throw this back to you. You've been a presidential candidate on a different party. Yeah. You're also vice president on a different party. Yeah. So let's look at cross-carpeting and realignment, because I'm looking at the internal party crisis and the issues around it, and then the build up to 2027, because the timetable is set already and we can't keep changing back and forth. No. So do you see Nigerians trusting those just cross-carpeting is about the interest for the individual or for the people who they are serving, who come out to stand under the sun and in the rain and cast a vote for them as well? Our
advice to Nigerians, don't worry about the political platforms anymore, because they're all mumbled up. It's same people, same Nigerians. And I keep saying the blame on politicians is a bit unfair these days, because we've seen people who have been handpicked from the people put into political offices and still do not perform. So I've been trying to send a message to Nigerians to say that we need to change ourselves. So we need to change how we think. We need to change how we reason. Because in most cases, we have come to the realization that it is us that still do us. You know, unfortunately.
So we do ourselves. Is we doing ourselves the same thing?
I'm serious.
Over time. So let's look at, I like the fact that you said it's not about the parties. Because someone said at some point, we don't even have political parties. We don't have structures and all that. But let's look at electoral reforms since 2023. The lessons we learned in electoral reforms, because we keep amending electoral acts every time to see. At some point, someone raised it to me in the National Assembly and said, why is that every assembly we're looking at amending the electoral act to fit in with what the mindset is for the political class and all that. And also in the school of thought, some think tanks were speaking to the issues to say the majority on the street, the masses, are more than the elite class, and until we take advantage to know our strength in delivering these votes and that. So let's look at electoral reforms since 20. What has changed compared to going into 2027?
So first of all, let me establish that it's okay to visit the laws from time to time. They're man-made laws.
Of course.
It's okay to visit them, to amend them to suit our new realities and stuff like that. So that's fine. With regards to what's this? I missed it again.
I'm talking about the Electoral Amendments Act. We look at changes, we look at realignments, and I'm looking at what should be done differently. What lessons have we learned from 2023, and with the reforms we have going into 2027?
Yeah, well, I think really one thing I've actually got to realize is, for politicians, right, that have been given the responsibility to make such amendments, to execute such laws, they must ensure that the time that they have got to be in office, that they do the right things. Okay. Because we have seen, not just in the even distant past, where some people insisted that a certain law had to sit because it was favoring them at that time. Okay. And in just few years after, those same laws were not catching up with them.
I've seen that play out.
Yeah, we've seen that play out. So my advice is, look, fellow Nigerians, fellow politicians, make sure the opportunities that you have now given to you by the people, is something that you're going to use to put in place the right kind of structures that will benefit you, even when you're out of office, because you're going to be out of office eventually.
Of course, office is not your ancestral home.
Yeah, but people forget.
People forget.
But people forget, and that's why there's a problem. So you have come up, you have done a lot of things that will favor you at a particular time. Before you know it, it's haunting you.
Okay, so a lot of questions have been asked. Let's look at the schedule on the timetable for the INEC elections. The timetable is out already. A lot of people are still saying, is it this early release good enough, or how significant is the early release of this timetable by INEC to the political class and to Nigerians? Of course, by law, it's a 360 days or before that to come out. Does this reflect lessons learned from 2023? Of course, we have a new leadership in the umpire, that's INEC, who also wants to showcase what he wants to bring in differently to build on. Because I was at a media conference where he spoke to the media and said he's also proposing a mock election before the main election as part of the way he wants to ensure things are in line. So could it see that as lessons learned? I
don't know really. If the people were really excited, then maybe a mock election will also be exciting to witness. There's no excitement. There's nothing that is driving the people right now. And which is why I'm also thinking that probably the National Assembly should come up with something like, for you to continue doing business in Nigeria, or for you to continue operating your account, or for you to continue banking with a Nigerian bank, you would have to participate in the election process. Something must hold us accountable to come out to exercise that civil right. Yeah. It's a civic right. Nothing is pushing anybody. So everybody sleeps on that day. People play football. People watch movies. People do anything they want to do.
Football.
Yeah, people do anything they want to do. So, and these are the same people that are going to keep complaining through the next 4 years.
So let me pause it there. Because I'm sorry I had to cut it in. If we see the same thing play out every now and then, like football, because when I go to cover elections, I look out for side things that happen around elections day, because ideally movement is restricted, people just stay within their vicinity, and the next thing to do is, of course, play football. Or sit at home for those who are what they call
the older ones who play drafts.
You get it. So how do we get them to change their mindset? Because that's what is pulling all of this voter apathy, and also not aligning with the Electoral Act. The Electoral Act is supposed to, like you said, amendment is something that should come to play. But if we're amending and people are not coming out, advocacy, at what points we need to create advocacy and win the people's trust that you don't need to sit at home but come out to exercise a franchise?
Yeah, so really what actually drives all of these campaigns has to do with a lot of resources. So who is sponsoring it? Who is making sure that those who have agreed to be in the civic space or in the advocacy space are being funded enough to carry out this strong advocacy and conversations that would excite voters to be present at polling units? Everybody is, the morale is extremely low.
Okay, so what can make the morale high? Let me give you a scenario.
I can tell you what can make the morale high.
So we have the issue of vote buying. Vote buying is something that has become the order of the day when we come to election day. We've seen this play out. And I was at a press conference in Anambra when I saw that play out. Some person who don't understand that you just need to observe, one observer who don't understand you need to observe just the process and not just interfere in vote buying, and he was beating blue-black. so he was beating blue-black. And I got to speak to, so I had a meeting with other observer groups where we spoke around the issue, and he said, until Nigerians, I'm speaking from here, I wish I could play that clip for you right now. They said, until Nigerians understand that since the class wants to keep giving, why don't we come out in our numbers and collect what they can give? And maybe that can change the mindset. Since they want us to sell our votes, let's also sell in a way that it can give us results and they cannot afford it. And then we get to choose who we want. You collect the money and you still do what you want to do.
So you're not smarter than the politician. The guy who wants
to... So we're not smarter than politicians?
No.
So what would be the politicians...
so many politicians do not just give you money. They follow you to make sure that you vote for them.
I see that play out.
Yes. And a lot of people who do otherwise, get the other side of the stick. They get some of them get beaten
up.
up.
Is that supposed to be the order of the day?
It is not supposed to. We all know. You asked me a question that you already have an answer to.
So,
we all know, unfortunately. So, which is why we say, do not collect it. I mean, if you look at it critically.
So, if they don't collect, they don't vote. So, we're still where we are.
No, they don't collect their votes.
Those that, even when they vote, but there's issue of trust. Like you said, is it what they vote that they end up seeing?
That's why I said from the beginning that if you go out in your numbers, we're saying 100 million registered voters, and you're seeing only a turnout of about 15, 16 million. Imagine if 80 million people presented themselves. How many of them do you want to pay? How many of them do you want to buy? How many of them do you want to chase away? I keep seeing people say, oh, there's going to be 1 million march in Abuja. Oh, they will say 1 million. Do you know what 1 million people, do you know what 10,000 people will look like if they come to you?
On the streets, I understand.
It's crazy. So it's all lies that we have 1 million man march. Probably just 500 people. If you bring 1 million people to Abuja, we will tank. Nothing will move.
Of course, it will be a standstill.
Absolutely.
And across the road. But so let's hope that Nigerians have a mindset to change and ensure that 2027 is people-driven, citizens-driven, people speaking to the mandate to say it is time we get someone get leaders who will speak to our conscience and get us what we want. But let's look at still the timetable and also look at our political parties institutionally prepared for credible primaries, because it starts from the primaries for them to get the candidates who will represent them in terms of contending for the different positions.
So even within the political parties, whether the opposition, whether the ruling parties, most primaries are decided by how much money you're ready to give to delegates, how much money you're ready to give to...
So it's to cut across around spending.
That's us doing us. You know, so a lot has to change. Our mindset has to change. Our approach to things have got to change. I don't know if we've ever been a better people than this. I think we've always been like this, and that is why we're struggling. I mean, I saw a list of monies that have been diverted from Nigeria in the last 10 years, and it is mind-blowing. You get to wonder how we're still surviving. And that is why, because of all of those gaps, you find people like Boko Haram striving and then
that's not a lucrative business.
It's a lucrative business because, again, government is being pushed sometimes to want to pay ransom. Even individual families pay ransom, and the more you pay these guys, the more they get enabling them, because most of those monies, they don't spend them. They take most of them and go back to the market to reinforce with the ammunition that looks even bigger than what our security forces have. So it's a real concern. It's a real problem. But all of these gaps are happening because we're not doing the right thing.
So let's see how political parties can do the right thing, because we're looking at primary setting. Obviously, we talk about delegates paying, but what role does internal party democracy play in voter confidence? Because if your house is fixed, you build the confidence to your supporters to say the house is in order. So what are you missing out that you cannot, go out and exercise a franchise and get us to do the work you want us to do?
I can assure you, to a large extent, if primaries are done properly within political parties, it will give rise to hope and trust being built from the people, because people are watching. So when they see a political party doing its primaries in an accountable, open, and transparent way, they start feeling, oh, maybe this political party is really ready for something to happen. I mean, in the last, in 2023 primaries in the APC, we did see how it was decided by money. In the same way in the PDP, it was decided by money. In fact, even small political parties, I won't lie to you, when I did contest in 2019, that was my first contest. We registered the political party. We were in the forefront. People came and then joined the political party. And then on the day of the primary, people were just watching. So you're not going to give us anything for us to vote for you. We're delegates here.
Oh my God.
I am serious. And this was a very small political party that needed to build itself on trust, on accountability, on openness, and fairness for the people to say, oh, we saw how they ran their process. And guess what? INEC was present. INEC just sat down and let you guys finish your business, and then I can go back to my office.
Because, of course, they came to observe the process, not get involved in the process.
Absolutely. So these are the issues.
Well, a lot of this needs to be sorted out. A lot of this needs to be, I think, platforms, just like we always have the presidential debates or things like this, maybe.
Yeah, and then there should be clearly defined rules that govern the process. All candidates must agree to be present for debates.
I think that's
not optional.
Not optional.
Yeah, it shouldn't be optional. People must come to debates. And then for registered voters, you would have to have a genuine reason why you didn't go out to vote on election day.
If we have implementations of such policies.
Yes, there can be implementation of such policies to say, you know what, your inability to vote translates for us to see it on the center that you didn't vote, and that might terminate your ability to use your bank card or access your bank account for 3 months. Like penalties
that
should be put in place. These penalties would encourage people to come out to go and exercise their rights. Whatever, if you like, go and collect somebody's money, just get out of your house and go and vote.
And not sit down playing.
And not sit down playing ball.
I'll play that, like you mentioned.
Because a lot of people register to vote because they feel, oh, if I don't have a registered voter's card, it might be used against me sometime. So let me get it. I have it, I drop it in my locker. And that's not fair.
Okay, well, so let's look at the context of understanding the voter party thing. Like you talked about, and I mentioned earlier, in 2023, Nigeria recorded its lowest voter turnout since 1999. Millions of registered voters didn't show up at polling units, you understand? So let's look at the key angles. We've mentioned it earlier as we've been talking, distrust in institutions, understanding how it plays out, electoral violence. I've been in election places where ballot boxes snatched, gunshots.
You dodging bullets.
Me dodging bullets. And trying to keep my life, get myself safe. And the economic hardship. I've also seen the youth disengagement, technology failures, for instance. But with the 2026 FCT area council elections, the INEC chairman went round and checked out around the beavers. So let's talk about beavers. We've talked about the internet facilities across communities, but new technology that introduced, initially we used to have the smart card reader, and Nigerians talked about smart card reader, and then Beavers was introduced, and RF portal, of course, which we're still discussing, seeing if that can play out. Let's look at all of these measures and see why are Nigerians increasingly staying away from the polls? Is it just about the loss of faith? Because, of course, like you mentioned, it's no longer a voter party to you anymore.
It's a boycott.
It's a boycott because people are tired of being told things and they don't come out as needed. For me, let me share my experience personally. For the 2023 election, I was dogged in the whole thing compared to other elections I've covered. And at the Coalition Center, you know, I was excited, because I saw the Energy Nigerians came out with before. And then at the Coalition Center where results were being announced and all that. The way FCT was called that day, it just gave me a mindset. I was driving home and I looked at the streets.
So let's put it in clear context. Assuming Peter Obi was announced as the winner of the 2020
what would have
election,
changed?
You understand? And he didn't do well.
That's what I'm asking.
And he didn't do well. Let's assume that he, in the last 2-3 years, has been woeful.
I was getting to that. You just out my mouth.
Yeah, and has been woeful.
Yes.
Nigerians will be like, oh, so he's not the right guy. Who is the next right guy? And they do it.
You get the point.
You get the point. So once that is able to happen, this helps revive, which is why I'm pleading with the institutions to just help us, because we're going to be out of this space in no time, and our children would have to contend with this madness. Are they really prepared for this madness? Do we want to just shut down this country and say it doesn't exist anymore? Because if we're looking at it,
shut down. Where's our home? This is the only place we have as a home.
I will explain to you how countries shut down. Countries shut down when people like Boko Haram, ISWAP, and other terrorist groups take charge.
Okay.
As I speak with you right now, there are certain communities in my area where you go there and you see these aliens in charge of activities. People pay tax to them, people bring food products to them, they decide which of the women they want to have in their camp and stuff like that. If these things are happening, it means that place does not exist anymore. It has been owned by aliens. And if we are not careful, we've seen it move all the way from Borno, pass through Kano, pass through Katsina. It went all the way to Zamfara. And now we're talking about Kwara.
I
remember about 18 years ago, while I was still working in Lagos, we were talking about Boko Haram and how it's worked. And then I remember one of my bosses saying that that is you people's problem in the north. And I said it's fire burning. You never know.
It's spreading across.
You may know where it starts, but you never know where it's going to end. And we can see it's come to Kogi, Benue, and everybody is fidgeting. And we're not going to remove the southeast from the conversation, because even the southeast is unstable.
Of course.
And then you're going to south and you're still having militants who are there just waiting for the whistle.
So they just come out their numbers.
So what are we really doing? And it is all of these supposed little things with regards to unaccountability, with regards to unfairness that builds and breeds this kind of commotion.
Okay, so how do we get transparency? Now we have the Electoral Act that's been amended and signed into law. Transparency concern is the question right now. Because you've mentioned we doing ourselves the same thing, and until we get it straight to get a transparent system, you know, a lot of people have raised the issue that until INEC becomes truly independent, but is that really visible at this point? You know, because INEC will tell you they're doing their bit, they're doing this. So when can, what measure should we use to rate the transparency concerns for Nigerians to trust the system?
I don't know right now what measures, but I can say one thing. I believe that whoever is going to be on his second term and as he's exiting, he should truly not be bothered about who is going to succeed him.
Okay.
All right? Don't worry about who's going to succeed you as president. Don't worry about who's going to succeed you as governor. Just allow the people and the system decide. Don't interfere with the electoral process. Don't interfere with the legal system. Just allow the institutions stand on their own. Just allow the voice of the people get heard, and you bow out as a former governor or president or whatever. And now this is the catch. So if you want that to happen, you expect that right now they will not be corrupt.
Sure.
Right now they'll be accountable. Right now they would allow the fear of God that they all say they have to actually take center stage in all their activities, so that you're not going to be worried about whether EFCC or ICPC is going to come after you when you leave. Because the reason why everybody wants a successor that's coming from him, so you can cover him up, so you can protect his mess and ensure that he does not go to jail. We've seen it happen in a lot of places. Some of them have succeeded, some of them haven't succeeded. Some of them have also seen how their supposed successors turned out to be their worst nightmares. You know, but whatever the case is, they did interfere with the institutions and the process at the time they were still in office.
So power play is a major concern.
It is.
Incumbency is another concern.
It is.
So let's look at, while we're dealing with all of that, power play, incumbency, interference in the electoral process, and not giving people the needed results they want in terms of leadership and all that. But let's come back to the electoral process, because we're looking at how we can deal with this voter apathy and people coming out to be involved in the system and change the narrative of things. On election day, we always have issues around logistical logistics coming to bring in the sensitive materials to the polling units. And so most Nigerians from 2023 were discouraged, because you come out to queue. Some people come out very early, get numbers for the queue, and to ensure that they get to vote on time, go back home, get freshened up, and come back to see the counting process, so they can actually monitor their votes being counted. So how can INEC, because INEC is like I said, electoral process is a multi-stakeholder thing. It's not just INEC alone. We can't keep screaming INEC down, because they have the transporters to work with, they have the security operatives to work with, they have the media, of course, to also help them put out their thoughts for people to understand efforts that have been made so far. But in a process where, for instance, I know the INEC chairman spoke after the FCT. I'm using the FCT because that's one of the elections he's conducted fully. And he mentioned the fact that transport platforms who intentionally sabotaged it because they worked through all of these things. They were going to be blacklisted.
And you can see how politicians are heavily concerned about who leads or heads the National Union of Road Transport Workers.
So you see, and that's a very strong place attention needs to be paid to as well, because if we want to get it right, and it's a multi-stakeholder electoral process, we all need to have a transparent mindset to ensure that the process is seamless, because I'm looking at that as also an obstruction to the voter coming out to vote.
Because some people go out so early and they don't get to start voting until 1 o'clock. Before they even finish voting, it's already getting dark. Before they start counting, it's extremely dark. Before you know it, the whole energy that you brought in to ensure that you just don't just vote, but also protect your vote, is fizzled out over time. So it's a huge concern. It's a huge problem. I still think that technology has come and we must embrace it. I mean, all of those transportation of election papers in the mornings or what have you, I just think that we should be going past that by now. We should be able to have real digital systems that we can use. I mean, why can't people vote from their homes?
Because I was asking you about should we make electronic voting compulsory, and you've just said should we vote from our homes?
It can be an option. We can have free options. We can have people who will sit down in the comfort of their homes, log in with their unique ID, because why not? Nobody gets into your bank account.
That's bank accounts.
So what secures the bank account?
I'm just saying. That's
what
bank
secures it?
It is the identification.
Exactly.
That does that.
And the only time somebody is able to hack yours is if they have access to certain information.
So, but that's why I said it's your bank account and it's your personal information. We're talking about the issue of transparency and trust right now, and there's the issue of vote buying.
So I'm saying if we keep talking about all of these things and it seems like not to be getting anywhere.
I'm looking at the place of trust. If you want to trust the system, and can we trust even ourselves as people to ensure that whatever we're doing in the comfort of our homes is what reflects out there?
So I'll give you an example. So I'm doing in the comfort of my home, and then there is a portal that we can all look at in real time. We can easily see and say, oh, there we can see how it's building up. We can see how this party is seeming to be gaining ground, or we can see how this coming from this state and everything. My location determines where I'm voting from. My unique ID determines whether I can access the platform. All of that happens and decides. That's stage one. The second one will be people that would have to say, oh, we don't have the right laptop, or we don't have the right phone.
And also, I don't have the smartphone.
I don't have a smartphone.
You know, I don't have internet.
I don't have internet. So I'm going to go to the polling unit where there is a system where all I need to do is
just put my
fingerprint, and it's being sent in real time as well. And it goes to that same portal. Or you have the other people, like the ones that have identified that, oh, they don't have internet in their spaces. Okay, fine. Come and do this manual whatever, and then different parties would have their agents there who would take pictures of all of these things so that we can reconcile should there be any concern in future. Why can't we have these options? It seems like we don't want to even move forward, and most of the people that are fidgeting right now are the people who this smart card reader, electronic smart card reader you spoke about, favored in 2015 to even get into office in the first place, because Nigerians fought Jonathan really hard to ensure that he agrees to allow the ECR, the electronic card reader, come into play. It has come into play. Most of you were able to bench some people, remove some people from office, you emerge, and now we're trying to progress and advance the technology, but you're saying no, we cannot. It should not happen.
Okay. So I'm hoping that all of these concerns, as we've been raised here, will be looked into, because transparency is what is very important for Nigerians to go through. And talking about transparency, let's talk about campaign finance regulations, because that's one thing. Because we talked about incumbency, where the funds are available, of course. From that mindset, that's what Nigerians see it to be. And then you have, just like you mentioned, when you came in first for the presidential election, you had a small party, and which was just trying to build on trust. But when we come to campaign finance, there's a whole lot coming. So we need to look at sanctions and regulations that makes it easy. Because, for instance, when we're looking at inclusivity, where we have the gender trying to play balance, and we look at the strength in terms of financing, how is that sitting well for the political class as we prepare for 2027?
So, what institutions do you want to use to checkmate this? Which is the first conversation. So you find out that whoever is in charge of that that body, say an auditing body that audits all of these political parties to see how much money has come into their accounts and how much money they have spent and how they manage to ensure that they do not cross the limits of the allowable amount of money that has to be used to have to be spent during an election campaign. By the time you start looking at who the Auditor General of the country is, you now realize that he was appointed by an incumbent party. Okay. So how
does he regulate it?
How does he regulate it? He wants to keep his job. He wants to keep his paymaster's job so that he remains in office. Okay. So I don't know, but we've not been able to separate ourselves from power interfering with institutions, and the people just don't even realize, because if I'm going to be appointed tomorrow as a top person in one of these institutions, I'm going to have my phone buzzing.
Of course, you should
non-stop. I'm going to be under pressure. Of course. You know, and this pressure is what makes these people unable to to be dedicated to the expectation of giving us the dividends of democracy.
Okay, so since we have a challenge in curbing all of that and setting the tone right for people to understand that, hopefully we find a way around it, because you have the person who puts you in seat. You cannot go back and bite the finger. It's feeding you. That's the literal way to define that. But let's look at electoral offenders. Do we think we have enough, or is the Electoral Act sufficient enough to punish these electoral offenders? Because ballot box snatching is not as it used to be in 2015, 20.
Yeah.
It has actually reduced. But electoral offenders, like the vote buying.
Yeah.
How do we?
So vote buying.
Do you think this act?
Vote buying. What do you call
People
them again?
who want to vote twice.
So there's vote buying going on. There are hoodlums coming to disrupt
disruption of the process.
Yeah, the process and all of that. And you arrest them.
So
you arrest them and you
think
take
this
them
act
to
is
police
dealing
station,
with
and then you
that?
get a call to release them. So if you look at the city of Abuja that we live in now, nobody worries about anything anymore. It's just like a
Everyone's just
free
mind
for
their
all.
business.
I don't think they mind it. Everybody just breaking the law.
Okay.
So from traffic lights to rough driving to knowing that what I'm doing is wrong, nobody cares, because they feel that there might be somebody I can call that can help me get out.
That can clear me out.
That can clear me out. And the policeman is like, why do I even have to bother? Because I know if I pick him up,
Somebody
I'm
will
just going, and I'll see him tomorrow. He will come and tell me that you. So there's a lot that is wrong. You know, I have to appreciate that Abuja has a different landscape now.
Okay.
We've seen new roads and we've seen development. We've seen places, roads that we thought were never going to be done. We've seen them connect with other sites,
Connecting very well,
which is
actually.
fantastic. But then we are actually living like barbarians right now, because nobody cares about any law and whether it should be respected.
So at this point, you think we should establish Electoral Offences Commission before 2027 that can handle all of these issues, just like you've mentioned, going forward?
Yeah, with a sincere government, that should be.
I like the context you use, the sincere government.
Yes, with a sincere government, that should be a real concern. That should be a real concern. And you tell your followers, I did not send you to do anything. Because I'm not going to lie to you, there are certain times that you find some voters who you've not met doing some things in your name just because they prefer you to the other person.
True. That's not replaceable.
Yeah, I've said this before. Somebody like, it's not possible, you have to pay them. I said, look, I had somebody in a state called Yobe. I never met the guy, but he was my one of my campaign coordinators. Okay. All right? We didn't win the 2019 election, obviously. In 2023, when he saw me on the ballot as a running mate under the African Democratic Congress, he kept calling me on the election day. And I was like, why is this guy calling me? Apparently, at that time, he was a youth corper. He had seen me when I presented something at ABU Zaria, probably in 2016, when he was still in school.
Okay.
So in 2023, he had finished school, he was a youth corper, and then he kept calling me, and I'm like, so I called him back like in the night when I was settled. He said, sir, I was at the polling unit and I was the copper there. So I saw that they didn't really vote for you, so I now added 3 figures at the back. Honestly, I did not send him.
Well, I'm wowed.
I'm telling you, I'm just trying to explain to you that in some cases, politicians are unaware. Somebody just says, I know somebody that knows him that can get me to him. So let's see how we can support him. And they create mayhem in your name.
So, and then in this scenario, so when he's been punished now and he feels like you're not there to defend him.
He would expect that I go there to defend him.
That's what I'm trying to say.
Yes, he would expect I go there to defend him. But I told him, I said, what you did is illegal. Who asked you? Don't do something like that. No.
So people get emotional and get out of their way.
People get emotional and get out of their ways. Oh. Just to ensure that that a certain candidate emerges.
Well, this is actually deep and a whole lot of, but let me throw this to you. What reforms would you prioritize if given the opportunity in this electoral process to see that Nigeria stands tall, voter apathy is out of the way, and then we have a system that works smoothly for Nigerians?
First of all, government must, especially government in office, must detach itself from supervision and interference with institutions, from the security agencies to INEC itself, to all the paramilitary. Secondly, we cannot hide anymore. We have to embrace technology. I'm a techpreneur, so I know how some of these systems can be properly secured to ensure that it's not hacked.
Okay.
We must accept technology. It will be the only thing that we'll use to excite this young generation that indeed we are truly determined to give them a better future.
Okay.
Then thirdly, it is, in my opinion, I think we must also have government in place that will be ready to set aside budget for civil society, advocacy groups, budget that will be supervised by independent auditors to ensure that those monies were used for the right purposes. And what are they supposed to do? They're supposed to encourage people, make people wake up with their consciousness to believing that indeed we are going to election years that are going to profit them just because they participated. If we're able to put these three things in place, in my opinion, I think indeed we may have a renewed conversation around how much people want to get involved in this process.
Okay, so I like that perspective you're running with, and hopefully if we get that to run and see how this can actually build a nation, because Nigeria is one country we cannot joke with. We have a lot of talent, we have a lot of raw stuff that needs to come to limelight through level playing fields that can stand. So, but let's look at the legal framework to how that can help solve the issue of voter apathy. Do you think legal framework alone can solve voter apathy? Because right now, we have people who just relax, who boycott it. Should we have a legal framework who should, pull them out of the way?
Yeah, we should. We should. Like I said earlier, we should have laws that would be in place that would affect you negatively should you not present yourself for such exercises. And like I said, it's something that a sincere government should be worried about. And a sincere government should be ashamed if the turnout is low, because if the turnout is low, it means people are feel disenfranchised and do not believe in your system.
Okay.
It's just like a teacher in a class of 100 students, and only 10 of them have A1s, and then the remaining 90 have F9. You didn't do well. You actually failed as a teacher.
Okay. So I like. Let's look at Nigeria. How does Nigeria compare with other African democracies? We've seen that play out. Before I let you go, basically, let's compare our system, electoral, because I've also seen where electoral umpires come to Nigeria to compare notes, to see the electoral processes and our democratic standards. So what can we do to make it different? What can we learn from other African countries and add to ours before we go to the international, the European countries? Let's see something like that.
So the problems that I just mentioned, or we've been talking about with regards to the Nigerian electoral space, and elections, it's pretty much the same across Africa. Because
we have an African mindset.
I don't want to think that, because if we have an African mindset, how can we start behaving well when we come out, when we leave our spaces? So it's not just about the mindset; it's about the fact that we have leadership that abuse opportunities to serve the people. I've seen governors who have said that. They are the Alpha and Omega, forgetting that they are actually servants to the people. In fact, I saw an interview on BBC Hausa where a girl was interviewing a political office holder, and people were criticizing her for being too blunt with her questioning.
But that's the line to turn, to ask. That's where you're being accountable, you're asking the right questions.
That is because the people have forgotten that he is serving them, not them serving him.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for all of this. Well, there's a whole lot to throw around, and we've talked about this from all youth inclusion, diaspora issues, political party reforms, and how we can get Nigerians to understand the way forward in getting the process safe, and also how Nigerians' role will also play out. Because like I said, it's a multi-stakeholder thing. It's not just about Nigerians always attacking, because I always see us always throwing the attack to say it's you have to be you have to do this, you have to do that. But it's high time we take responsibility and ensure that in whatever we do, what Nigeria must do is ensure that between now and 2027, Nigerians must restore the faith in Nigeria's democracy and also see that the best of Nigeria is shown across the world, and the world can see that Nigeria still has the better platform when it comes to democratic process. Lots can stand. So thank you so much for joining me, Ahmed Buhari. It's been an amazing time speaking to you to the issues, and I hope your perspective to changing the narrative of things gets in line, and I look forward to seeing you. I hope you're coming on 27 again.
Thank you for having me.
Straight. Thank you. Amazing conversation here on Global Morning, this particular segment. The 2027 elections may still be months away, but the work of rebuilding trust in our democracy must begin now. The timetable has been released, the laws are in place, the institutions are preparing. The question remains, will Nigerians show up? Well, that's it on this segment. Still more to come your way. Please stay with us.
Thank you, Anita.
Wake up with Global Morning, your daily guide to what's happening and making the rounds.
We delve into headlines, newspaper reviews, spot-on analysis, policies, current events, real talk, real issues that affect us all.
From the latest trends to the debate, every topic, every angle, Global Morning is where it all starts.
Global Morning,
For the latest issues,
always on point.
Watch Global Morning Monday to Friday at 7 a.m. Saturday and Sunday at 8 a.m. on Global Television.
It's good to have you back. It's still Global Morning. Of course, a lot has been on the program. We told you earlier that it was a whole lot. And I have Mukhtar back with me in the studio. Mukhtar.
It's great to be back with you, Anita Patrick. It was an amazing conversation, starting from the economic aspect of the AFTV and the politics. All of them are very pertinent discussions as it concerns our nation, Nigeria, because 2027 rather, is already by the corner, and your guest was able to x-ray the permutations, what voters should expect, how they should conduct themselves, election day and all of that. So it's a great one. And of course, with the Intercontinental Free Trade Area is something that has been advocated for a long time, because we've seen continent like Europe having the European Union and how they've been able to function as a unit. All of the countries are all in sync and in line with one another. And if we have that replicated in West Africa, it's something that will be a great one for our subcontinent, basically.
Okay. Well, there's a whole lot to still delve on this issue if we want to keep talking. But of course, isn't it amazing, right, Mukhtar? We hope our guests have had a fine one.
Of course, they did, and audience also.
Audience as well have also enjoyed the discussion so far. Well, that's the size of it on Global Morning this particular Saturday. We look forward to more programming from Global TV coming your way. Please stay with us. I am Anita Patrick.
And I am Mukhtar Kasim.
Have a lovely day ahead of you.